The alarms screamed through the halls of the Valorian palace. King Tharacin ran as fast as his legs could carry him, his long robes trailing behind him. Explosions shook the walls. Dust fell from the ceiling. He could hear the sound of weapons fire getting closer. He burst through the doors of the medical chamber. His daughter lay on the table, surrounded by glowing machines. Princess Liara looked so small and fragile. Her skin was almost transparent, showing the faint blue glow of her blood moving beneath. She was only 5 years old, but she had been sick since birth. "My lord, we must evacuate now," said the head physician. His hands shook as he checked the machines. "The Kreath forces will be here within the hour." Tharacin looked at his daughter. She was unconscious, kept alive by the medical equipment. "Can she survive the journey to the evacuation ships?" The physician's face said everything. "No, my lord. The ships have no medical facilities like these. She will die within hours if we move her." The king felt his heart break. He had already lost his wife and 2 older children to the Kreath attacks. Liara was all he had left. But he could not save her. The machines keeping her alive were too large to move. The evacuation ships were already overcrowded with refugees. He placed his hand on her forehead. Her skin felt cold. "Then she will die here with dignity," he whispered. "My lord, there might be another way," said Ambassador Celine, stepping into the room. She was older than the king, with white hair and kind eyes. "The human ship that responded to our distress call. Their captain is still in orbit." "A human?" Tharacin looked up. "What can humans do? They are newcomers to the galaxy. They have no advanced medicine." Celine moved closer. "No, but they have something we do not. They come from a harsh world. They are strong. They survive in conditions that would kill us. Perhaps—" She hesitated. "Perhaps their world could save her where ours cannot." The king stared at his daughter. It was an impossible idea. Humans were strange creatures. They breathed harsh air and lived on a heavy gravity world. They ate meat and fought wars. Everything about them was rough and brutal compared to the gentle Valorians, but she would die anyway if she stayed here. "Contact the human, Captain," he said quietly. "Captain." Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Wanderer. He watched the burning planet below through the view screen. Valorian ships were fleeing in all directions, escaping the Kreath fleet. He had never seen anything like it. Millions of people running for their lives. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from the surface," said his communications officer. "It's from King Tharacin himself." Jake raised his eyebrows. "Put him through." The king's face appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted and desperate. "Captain Morrison, I need your help. Not for my people, for my daughter." Jake listened as the king explained the situation. A dying child, no way to save her. A request that seemed insane. "Take her to Earth, raise her as his own. Give her a chance at life, Your Majesty. I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a father. I'm just a ship captain. I don't know anything about raising kids, let alone alien kids." "You are a human," Tharacin said. "That is enough. Your species survives. That is what I need for my daughter. A chance to survive." Jake ran his hand through his hair. This was crazy. He could get in serious trouble for this. Earth had strict rules about contact with alien species. Taking an alien child back to Earth? That could end his career, but he looked at the king's face. He saw the same desperate look his own father had worn when Jake's mother was dying. The look of a man who would do anything, sacrifice anything for someone he loved. "What about payment?" Jake asked. "Earth Command will ask questions. They'll want to know what I got in return for this risk." Tharacin straightened up. "I will give you the location of the ancient Velthara weapons cache. It has been a secret of the royal family for 5,000 years. The weapons inside could change the balance of power in the galaxy. They could protect Earth from the Kreath." Jake's second officer gasped. Even Jake had heard rumors about Velthara technology. Ancient weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "I'll do it," Jake said. "Get your daughter to my ship. We're running out of time." 20 minutes later, Jake stood in the medical bay of the Wanderer. Helen Burke, his ship's doctor, was examining the small form on the medical table. Princess Liara looked like she was made of glass. Her chest barely moved as she breathed. "This is impossible," Helen said, checking her equipment. "Her biology is completely different from ours. I don't know if she can even breathe our air properly. And her body is shutting down." "Jake, she's dying. Can you save her?" Helen looked at him for a long moment. "Maybe, if we get her to Earth, if I can study her biology. If we can find a way to stabilize her." That's a lot of ifs. What are her chances? 10%. Maybe less. Jake looked down at the small princess. She opened her eyes briefly. They were huge and dark like a night sky. She looked at him without fear, even though she must have been terrified. Then her eyes closed again. We're going to try, Jake said. The Wanderer pulled away from the planet just as the Kraith fleet moved in for the final attack. Jake watched from the bridge as Valora Prime burned. He thought about King Tharrison, who had given up his daughter to save her life. He thought about the responsibility he had just taken on. In the medical bay, Helen worked to keep Liara alive. The journey to Earth would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to figure out how to save a dying alien child. 3 weeks to decide what kind of life he could give her. Jake made a decision then. If she survived, he would not raise her as a princess. He would not raise her to be fragile and weak. He would raise her as a human. He would teach her to be strong, to survive, to never give up because in this galaxy the weak died, and he would not let this child die. The Wanderer jumped into hyperspace carrying its precious cargo toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the Valorian Empire fell into history. Ahead of them on a small blue planet called Earth, a new story was about to begin. The Montana winter was brutal. Snow covered the ground 3 feet deep. The wind howled through the mountains like a living thing. Inside the small cabin, Jake Morrison added wood to the fire and looked at the child sleeping on the couch. 6 months had passed since they arrived on Earth. Liara had survived, barely. Helen had worked miracles, figuring out her alien biology piece by piece. The child could breathe Earth's air now, though it was harder for her than for humans. She could eat Earth food, though only certain types. She was alive. That was what mattered, but she was still so weak. Jake had told the authorities that Liara was a war orphan from a border colony. Helen had falsified the medical records, listing her as fully human with a rare genetic disorder. It was risky. If anyone discovered the truth, they would both go to prison. But Jake could not let them take her away to some government lab. Liara stirred on the couch. She opened her eyes and looked at him. She still did not talk much. The trauma of losing her world, her family, everything she knew had left her quiet and withdrawn. Hungry? Jake asked. She nodded slowly. He made her soup, something light that her stomach could handle. She ate slowly, carefully. Everything about her was careful. She moved like she was afraid of breaking. After she ate, she went to the window. She pressed her face against the glass, watching the snow fall. Jake had learned that she loved watching the weather. On her homeworld, there had been no harsh weather. No storms, no snow. Everything had been controlled and gentle. Want to go outside? He asked. She looked at him with surprise. Then she nodded. He bundled her up in warm clothes. She looked like a tiny snowman when he was done. They stepped out into the cold. Liara gasped at the freezing air. On Earth, she felt the cold more than humans did. But she smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. She walked through the snow, stumbling and falling. She was not used to Earth's gravity yet. It was heavier than her homeworld. Every step was hard work for her, but she kept trying. She picked up snow in her hands, watching it melt against her warm gloves. She looked up at the sky, at the clouds rolling over the mountains. It's beautiful, she whispered. Her voice was soft and musical like wind chimes. Jake watched her explore. He realized something then. She was not afraid of Earth, she was fascinated by it. This harsh, dangerous world that would kill most Valorians did not scare her. It amazed her. Over the next year, Liara grew stronger. Her body adapted to Earth's heavier gravity. Helen said it was remarkable. Valorian biology was designed to adapt, but only if the stress did not kill them first. Liara was surviving where most of her species would have died. She started following Jake everywhere. When he chopped wood, she watched. When he hiked in the mountains, she tried to follow, though she could not keep up. When he practiced his military training exercises, she studied every movement. One day, when she was 7 years old, she asked him a question. Why are humans so strong? Jake stopped doing push-ups and looked at her. We're not that strong. There are lots of species stronger than us. But you do things that would kill Valorians. You work in the cold. You lift heavy things. You get hurt and keep going. Why? Jake sat down next to her. Because we have to. Earth is not a gentle world, Liara. It's dangerous. Humans evolved to survive danger. We had to be tough or we would have died out. She thought about this for a long time. Could I become strong like you? He looked at her thin arms, her fragile body. The idea seemed impossible, but he remembered her in the snow, falling and getting back up. He remembered her determination to walk when every step hurt. Maybe, he said, but it would be hard. Really hard. It might hurt. I don't care, she said. I want to be strong. I want to survive. Jake made a decision. Okay, we'll try. But we start slow. The training began the next day. They started with simple things. Stretching, walking, breathing exercises. Things that would be easy for any human child were difficult for Liara. Her muscles were not built for Earth's gravity. Her bones were lighter. Her lungs had to work harder, but she never complained. When she fell, she got back up. When she could not finish an exercise, she tried again the next day. Jake had trained soldiers who gave up easier than this little alien girl. Helen monitored her health closely. She warned Jake that they had to be careful. Push too hard and Liara's body would break down. But if they pushed just enough, her adaptive biology might make her stronger. By the time she was 10, Liara could run a mile without stopping. She could climb trees. She could keep up with Jake on his morning hikes. Her body was changing, becoming denser, stronger. She no longer looked like she would shatter at a touch. One afternoon, they were hiking in the forest when they heard a sound. A low growl. Jake froze. He put his arm out to stop Liara. A mountain lion stepped out from behind a tree. It was a big one, probably 200 pounds. Its eyes were fixed on them. Jake slowly reached for the knife on his belt. Mountain lions usually did not attack humans, but this one looked hungry. Liara, slowly back away, he whispered. But she did not move. She stared at the animal. Jake could see her shaking. She was terrified. The mountain lion charged. Jake pushed Liara behind him and met the attack. The big cat hit him like a truck. They went down in a tangle of claws and teeth. Jake managed to get his knife out, but the lion was strong. It bit into his shoulder. He screamed in pain. Then something hit the mountain lion from the side. It was Liara. She had picked up a fallen branch and swung it with all her strength. The lion turned on her, snarling. She stood her ground, holding the branch like a weapon. Jake used the distraction to drive his knife into the lion's side. The animal howled and ran off into the forest, wounded but alive. Jake collapsed, breathing hard. His shoulder was bleeding badly. Liara dropped the branch and ran to him. She was crying. You're hurt. You're hurt because of me. I was too scared to run. Jake grabbed her hand. No, you saved me. You fought back. She looked at her hand, still shaking. I've never fought anything before. Valorians don't fight. But I saw it hurting you and I got angry. Helen stitched up Jake's shoulder that night. She lectured him about being more careful. But she also pulled Liara aside and told her something. What you did today was brave. You protected someone you love. That's not about being Valorian or human. That's about heart. After that day, something changed in Liara. She trained harder. She asked Jake to teach her how to fight, not just how to be strong. She wanted to learn how to protect herself and others. Jake started teaching her basic self-defense. Then martial arts. Then military tactics. She absorbed everything like a sponge. Her alien mind was quick, able to see patterns and connections that humans missed. By the time she was 15, she could beat most adult humans in a fair fight. By 18, she was faster and stronger than Jake, even though he was a trained soldier. Helen studied her biology and discovered the truth. Liara's body had adapted to Earth in ways no Valorian had before. Her bones were denser than human bones. Her muscles were stronger. Her reflexes were faster. She had become something new. Not quite Valorian. Not quite human. Something in between. Jake watched her train one morning. She moved through combat forms with perfect precision. She was beautiful and deadly at the same time. He wondered what King Tharrison would think if he could see his daughter now. The weak princess had become a warrior. She had survived. But at what cost? She was no longer the gentle child her father had sent away. She was something Earth had made her become. But she was alive, and in this harsh galaxy, that was the greatest victory of all. 20 years had passed since Liara came to Earth. She was now 25 years old and worked as a martial arts instructor in town. Most people thought she was just unusually pale and thin. They had no idea she was from another world. Jake was older now, his hair gray at the temples. He had retired from the military and spent his time working on the cabin and hiking the mountains. Helen visited them often, still monitoring Liara's health and keeping her secret safe. Life was peaceful, simple, safe. Then Admiral Greg Foster came to their door. Jake recognized him immediately. Foster had been his commanding officer years ago. Now he ran Earth's deep space operations. The fact that he was here in person meant something serious was happening. "Jake, we need to talk," Foster said. He looked at Liara, who stood behind Jake. "All of us." They sat in the cabin's small living room. Foster pulled out a data pad and showed them images. Burning worlds, destroyed fleets, refugee camps. The Kreeth Empire has conquered half the known galaxy now. They're hunting down the remaining Valorian refugees and executing them. Entire families wiped out. He paused. King Tharison is still alive. He's leading a resistance, but he's losing. Liara had been silent, but now she spoke. "My father is alive?" "Yes, and he's been looking for you for 20 years. He never knew if you survived." Foster looked at her directly. "We need your help, Liara. The Valorians need you." "I'm just one person." "What can I do?" Foster leaned forward. "You're not just one person. You're a symbol, the lost princess who survived. More than that, you're a trained soldier who knows how to fight. The Valorians don't know how to fight. They need someone to teach them." Jake stood up. "No, absolutely not. She's built a life here. She's safe. I won't let you drag her into a war." "It's not your choice, Jake," Liara said quietly. She looked at the images on the datapad. Children in refugee camps, elderly Valorians being executed, her people dying while she lived safely on Earth. "It's mine." A week later, Liara stood on a military transport ship headed for deep space. Jake had insisted on coming with her. She had not wanted him to, but he refused to let her go alone. Helen had come too, saying someone needed to monitor her health. Admiral Foster had assigned Liara to a special operations unit called Shadow Lance. They were Earth's best soldiers, sent on impossible missions in deep space. Their job was to fight the Kreeth where official military could not go. The team leader was Commander Brandon Cole. He was tall and broad, with scars on his face and cold eyes. He looked Liara up and down when they first met. "So you're the alien we're supposed to babysit," he said. "I'm the soldier you're supposed to work with," she replied. Brandon laughed. "You don't look like much. You ever been in a real fight? Want to find out?" The other team members watched with interest. Brandon's lieutenant, Maya Rodriguez, grinned. She was their pilot, a woman with short dark hair and quick hands. "Boss, I think she just challenged you," Maya said. Brandon stepped onto the training mat. "All right, princess. Show me what you got." The fight lasted 30 seconds. Liara moved faster than Brandon expected. She used his size against him, redirecting his strength and throwing him off balance. When he tried to grab her, she slipped away like water. When he tried to hit her, she was already behind him. She ended it with a strike to his ribs that cracked 2 of them. Brandon went down, gasping. The rest of the team stared. Their weapons specialist, Kyle Chen, whistled. "Well, damn." Brandon got up slowly, holding his side. He looked at Liara with new respect. "Okay, maybe you're not dead weight after all." Their medic, Nathan Pierce, checked Brandon's ribs. "You're going to be sore for a week." "Worth it," Brandon said. He held out his hand to Liara. "Welcome to Shadowlance." Their first mission came 3 days later. Intelligence had located a Kreeth prison facility on a high-gravity world. Valorian prisoners were being held there, scheduled for execution in 48 hours. Shadowlance was ordered to extract them. "This is going to be rough," Brandon told the team. "The gravity on that planet is 1.5 times Earth normal. For us, that means everything will feel heavier. For the Valorians we're rescuing, it'll be crushing them." "What about for me?" Liara asked. "I don't know," Brandon admitted. "You grew up on Earth. Your body adapted to our gravity. This might be easier for you than for us." They dropped from orbit in a stealth pod. Liara felt the gravity hit her as they entered the atmosphere. It was heavy, like wearing a weighted vest, but she could handle it. Her bones and muscles had been strengthened by years on Earth. For the human team members, it was harder. They moved slower, breathing heavier. For the Valorian prisoners inside the facility, it was torture. They approached the prison at night. Kyle set charges on the outer wall while Maya hacked the security systems. Nathan prepared medical supplies for the prisoners. Brandon and Liara led the assault team. The explosion tore through the wall. Alarms screamed. Kreeth guards rushed toward them. Liara got her first look at the enemy. They were big, nearly 7 feet tall with thick armor-like skin. They carried energy weapons and moved with military precision. These were professional soldiers. One of them aimed at Brandon. Liara moved without thinking. She crossed the distance in seconds, faster than the guard expected. She struck his wrist, making him drop the weapon. Then she hit him in the throat, crushing his windpipe. He went down choking. More guards came. Brandon and the team opened fire. But Liara fought hand to hand. Her enhanced Valorian body made her fast and strong. The heavy gravity that slowed everyone else barely affected her. She moved through the guards like a storm. She felt something wake up inside her, something fierce and violent. The gentle Valorian part of her was horrified. But the human part, the part Jake had trained, took control. She fought with everything she had. They reached the prisoner cells. The Valorians inside looked like skeletons. The heavy gravity had been crushing them slowly. Many could not even stand. "We need to move fast," Nathan said, checking the prisoners. "Some of them won't survive transport." They loaded the prisoners onto emergency stretchers. Kyle covered the retreat with heavy weapons fire. Maya brought their ship in close, taking fire from Kraith air defenses. During the extraction, a Kraith soldier shot Kyle in the leg. He went down hard. The enemy rushed forward to finish him. Liara threw herself between them and Kyle. She took a blast to the shoulder that would have killed Kyle. Her enhanced body absorbed the damage, though it hurt like fire. She grabbed the guard's weapon and turned it on him. "Fall back," Brandon shouted. "Move, move, move." They got to the ship with seconds to spare. Maya flew through a storm of enemy fire, her hands steady on the controls. The ship shook and rattled but held together. They jumped to hyperspace just as Kraith fighters caught up to them. In the medical bay, Nathan worked on Kyle's leg, while Helen treated Liara's shoulder. The Valorian prisoners stared at Liara in shock. One of them was Ambassador Celine, the woman who had helped her father years ago. She was old now, frail from imprisonment, but she recognized Liara immediately. "Princess?" she whispered. "It cannot be, you died." "We all thought you died." "I survived," Liara said. "On Earth." Celine reached out with a shaking hand and touched Liara's face. "You're so different, so strong. What did they do to you?" "They taught me how to fight, how to survive." Liara helped Celine sit up. "I'm not the princess you remember." "No," Celine said, tears running down her face. "You're something better. You're hope." News of the rescue spread through the Valorian resistance network. The lost princess had returned. She was alive. She was a warrior, and she was fighting back. Brandon found Liara later looking out at the stars through a viewport. "You did good today. Really good. You saved Kyle's life." "I killed 6 Kraith soldiers," she said quietly. "I felt their bones break under my hands. That's what war is. Kill or be killed. Valorians don't kill. We never have. We evolved past violence." She looked at her hands. "But I'm not really Valorian anymore, am I?" Brandon put a hand on her shoulder. "You're whatever you choose to be. And today you chose to save lives. That's what matters." She knew he was right, but she also knew that crossing this line meant there was no going back. She had become a warrior, and in the war ahead she would have to fight harder than she ever imagined. The secret Valorian base was hidden inside a massive nebula where sensors could not reach. Hundreds of ships floated in the colorful gas clouds. This was all that remained of the Valorian people. 2 million refugees scattered across a dozen damaged vessels. Shadowlance's ship docked with the command vessel. Liara felt her heart beating fast. Somewhere on this ship was her father, a man she barely remembered, a king who had sent her away to save her life. Ambassador Celine walked beside her, still weak from imprisonment but insisting on being there.
"He never stopped looking for you."
Every day for 20 years, he asked if there was any news. "Any sign you had survived?" They walked through corridors filled with Valorians. People stopped and stared at Liara. Word had spread that the princess was alive. They whispered as she passed. Some reached out to touch her as if she was not real. The door to the command center opened. King Tharison stood at the window looking out at his refugee fleet. He looked so much older than Liara remembered. His hair was white. His shoulders were bent. The weight of his people's suffering had aged him. "Father," she said softly. He turned. For a moment he just stared at her. Then tears ran down his face. He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. He was shaking. "Liara, my Liara, I thought I had lost you forever." She hugged him back, this stranger who was her father. He felt so thin and fragile. All Valorians did to her now. She had to be careful not to hurt him. They talked for hours. He wanted to know everything about her life on Earth. She told him about Jake and Helen, about Montana and the mountains, about learning to fight and be strong. He listened quietly. When she finished, he touched her face gently. "You are so different from the daughter I sent away. That little girl was gentle and kind. You are harder now. I had to be. Earth is not a gentle world, I know, and I am grateful to the humans who saved you, but I grieve for the childhood you lost. The peace you should have known." Peace? Liara looked out at the refugee fleet. What good is peace when it makes you helpless? The Valorians were peaceful for thousands of years, and now we're dying because we never learned to defend ourselves. The king flinched at her words, but he could not argue. She was right. Admiral Foster and Brandon Cole joined them for a strategy meeting. Maps showed Kraith territory spreading like a disease across the galaxy. Valorian resistance forces were losing ground every day. "We need to change tactics," Liara said. "Stop running. Start fighting." The Valorian military commander shook his head. "Our people are not warriors, Princess. We cannot match the Kraith in combat, then learn, train, adapt." She stood up. "I did. If I can become strong enough to fight, so can others. You are one person, and you were raised by humans. Our people do not have that advantage. Then I'll train them. Give me volunteers. I'll teach them what Jake taught me." The room erupted in arguments. Many of the older Valorians were horrified at the idea. Their culture had rejected violence for millennia. To embrace warfare now felt like betraying everything they believed in. But Ambassador Celine stood up. "Our beliefs will not matter if we are all dead." "The princess is right. We must change or we will die." King Tharrison looked at his daughter for a long time. Finally he nodded. "Very well. You will have your volunteers. But Liara, I fear what this will do to our people's souls." Over the next week, 50 young Valorians volunteered for Liara's training program. Most were refugees who had watched family members die. They wanted to fight back. Liara looked at her new recruits. They were so thin and weak. Most could barely lift a basic weapon. Some looked like they would break if she touched them. But there was determination in their eyes. The training was brutal. Liara pushed them harder than Jake had ever pushed her. She had to. They did not have years to get strong. The Kraith were coming. Shadowlance helped. Brandon taught them military tactics. Maya showed them how to pilot combat ships. Kyle trained them on weapons. Nathan monitored their health, making sure the training did not kill them. Several times it almost did. Helen worked around the clock, treating recruits whose bodies were breaking down under the stress. The Valorian biology was adapting, but slowly. Too slowly. After 2 months, 3 recruits died from the training. Their bodies could not handle the strain. Liara held their bodies and wept. She felt like a murderer. Jake found her that night sitting alone in the dark. "This is not your fault. I killed them. I pushed them too hard. No, the Kraith killed them when they destroyed their world. You're trying to save the rest." He sat beside her. "War has costs, Liara. Sometimes people die even when you're trying to help them." She looked at her hands. "Am I doing the right thing? Turning my people into warriors? My father is right. This is changing who we are. Maybe change is necessary. Look at Earth's history. Humans learned to fight because we had to. Every species that survives does what it must." The training continued. The remaining recruits got stronger. Their bodies adapted. They learned to shoot, to fight, to move like soldiers instead of refugees. It took 6 months, but slowly they became warriors. Then the Kraith attacked a Valorian refugee colony on an ice moon called Frostholm. 2,000 civilians lived there. The Kraith sent 3 warships to destroy it. Liara loaded her new unit, now called the Storm Guard, onto transport ships. Brandon tried to stop her. "They're not ready. 6 months of training doesn't make them soldiers. They'll get slaughtered. If we don't defend Frostholm, everyone there dies. At least this way they have a chance." She looked at her 50 warriors. "We're going." The ice moon was freezing with winds that cut like knives. The Valorian colonists were trying to evacuate when the Kraith landed. Their soldiers moved through the settlement, killing everyone they found. The Storm Guard hit them from 3 sides. The Kraith were shocked. Valorians did not fight back. They ran, they surrendered, they died. But these Valorians fought like demons. Liara led from the front. She moved through the enemy soldiers with deadly precision. Everything Jake had taught her, everything she had learned, she used. The Kraith had never faced anything like her. Her warriors followed her example. They were still not as strong as Kraith soldiers, but they were faster, smarter, and fighting for their homes. They used tactics the enemy did not expect: ambushes, traps, guerrilla warfare. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Kraith commander, a brutal warrior named Vex, fought his way through the settlement looking for Liara. He had heard about the Valorian princess who fought like a human. They met in the colony's central dome. Vex was huge, covered in battle scars, carrying a massive energy blade. Liara looked tiny compared to him. "So you are the weak princess who thinks she is a warrior," he laughed. "I will enjoy killing you." They fought across the dome. Vex was strong and experienced, but Liara was faster. She used his size against him, staying out of reach of his powerful strikes. She cut him a dozen times with her combat knife. Finally, she got inside his guard and drove her blade into his throat. But he was wearing armor there. The blade broke. He grabbed her and threw her across the room. She hit the wall hard enough to crack her ribs. Vex raised his energy blade for the killing strike. Then Kyle hit him with a rocket from outside the dome. The explosion threw them both back. When the smoke cleared, Vex was gone, escaped to his ship. The Kraith fleet retreated. Frostholm was saved. But 7 of Liara's 50 warriors were dead. Another 12 were badly wounded. She walked through the colony looking at the bodies of her soldiers, young Valorians who had trusted her to lead them, who had followed her into battle, who had died because of her choices. The colonists came out of hiding. They saw their defenders, these young warriors who had saved them. They saw Liara, covered in blood and exhausted, and they cheered. But Liara did not feel like celebrating. She had won the battle, but at what cost? How many more would die before this war was over? King Tharison arrived the next day. He walked through the battlefield, seeing what his daughter had created. Warriors where there should have been poets, soldiers where there should have been scholars. "Is this what we must become to survive?" he asked her. "Yes," she said. "I'm sorry, father." But yes, he looked at her with sad eyes. "Then I pray we do not lose our souls in the process." The warning came 2 weeks later. Kraith intelligence had discovered the location of the main Valorian refugee fleet. The Emperor himself had ordered its destruction. The entire Third Fleet was coming. 200 warships against a fleet of civilian vessels and a handful of defenders. King Tharison called an emergency council. The room was filled with frightened leaders and military officers. Everyone knew what 200 Kraith warships could do. "We must evacuate immediately," said one admiral. "Scatter the fleet. Some of us might escape. The fleet is too large. We cannot move quickly enough." "They will catch us in hyperspace," another officer replied. "Then what do you suggest? That we surrender?" Silence fell over the room. Everyone knew the Kraith did not take prisoners. Surrender meant execution. Liara stood up. "We fight." The room erupted. Half the council shouted at once. Fighting was impossible. The Kraith fleet would destroy them in hours. It was suicide. "Better to die fighting than running," Liara said. "We have 2 weeks. We can prepare. Train more warriors. Arm the civilian ships." "With what?" an admiral demanded. "We have no weapons. No military ships. We are refugees, not an army." Brandon Cole stepped forward. "Earth will help. Admiral Foster can provide weapons and training. We have volunteers ready to fight alongside you. But will Earth's government allow this? It means war with the Kraith Empire." "My government is still debating," Brandon admitted. "But individual humans can choose to fight. Hundreds of veterans have volunteered. We don't need official permission to help." King Tharison looked at his daughter. "Can we truly win this battle?" "I don't know," Liara said honestly. "But if we run, we lose everything. If we fight, we at least have a chance." The king made his decision. "We will fight. May the ancestors forgive us for what we are about to do." The next 2 weeks were chaos. Liara trained thousands of Valorians in basic combat. They could not become skilled warriors in 2 weeks, but they could learn to fire a weapon and follow orders. Brandon and Shadow Lance helped turn civilian ships into weapons. Mining lasers became makeshift cannons. Cargo haulers carried explosives. Even small personal ships were armed with whatever they could find. Human volunteers arrived every day. Veterans who had fought in Earth's wars. Mercenaries looking for a cause. Young people who believed in helping the weak. Jake was among them, refusing to let Liara fight alone. Admiral Foster sent weapons and equipment through unofficial channels. Earth's government still had not committed to the war, but Foster made sure the Valorians had what they needed to defend themselves. The night before the battle, Liara walked through the refugee fleet. She saw families holding each other, children too young to understand what was coming, elderly Valorians who had already lost so much. She found her father in his quarters, looking at old pictures of her mother and siblings. All dead now. Killed by the Kraith, I am afraid, he admitted. Not of dying, but of watching our people die. Of being the last king of a dead civilization. Liara sat beside him. You won't be. Whatever happens tomorrow, the Valorians will survive, because you taught us that some things are worth fighting for. He touched her face gently. You have become so strong. I am proud of you, my daughter. Even if this strength came at great cost. Every choice has a cost. You chose to save me. That cost you your daughter's childhood. I chose to become a warrior. That cost me my innocence. Tomorrow we choose to fight. Whatever that costs, we pay it together. The Kraith fleet arrived right on schedule. 200 warships, massive and terrifying. They filled the space around the refugee fleet like wolves surrounding prey. Admiral Krex's face appeared on every screen. Valorian refugees, your time has ended. Surrender your ships and prepare for judgment. Liara's face appeared on the same channel, broadcast to both fleets. This is Princess Liara of Valora. We do not surrender. If you want us, come and take us, she cut the transmission. Around her, the storm guard prepared for battle. She looked at her warriors. 2,000 of them now. Not enough to win a normal battle. But this would not be a normal battle. Remember what I taught you, she told them. We are not as strong as them. But we are faster, smarter, and we are fighting for our families. That makes us dangerous. The battle began. Kraith warships opened fire. The Valorian fleet scattered, using the tactics Brandon had taught them. They did not fight like a military force. They fought like guerrillas, hitting and running, using asteroids for cover, fighting dirty. Liara led a squadron of Storm Guard fighters against the enemy flagship. They moved through the battlefield like hunting birds, too fast for the Kraith's heavy weapons to track. She saw Commander Vex's ship and knew he would be coming for her. Their unfinished fight from Frostholm hung between them. This time one of them would die. Her squadron penetrated the flagship's defenses and landed in the hangar bay. Kraith soldiers rushed to meet them. The fighting was brutal and close. Liara moved through them like a storm, her enhanced body making her faster and stronger than any normal Valorian. She found Vex in the ship's command center. He smiled when he saw her. The princess returns. Good. I have been waiting to finish what we started. They fought through the command center, destroying equipment and consoles. Vex was bigger and stronger, but Liara had trained her entire life for this. She was faster, more skilled. The fight took them through 3 decks. Both of them were bleeding, both exhausted. Vex's armor was cracked. Liara's ribs were broken. Finally, she got the advantage. She disarmed him and held her blade to his throat. She could kill him easily. Part of her wanted to. He had killed so many of her people. But she thought of her father, of the gentle Valorian culture that valued life above all else. She had become a warrior, but she did not have to become a monster. I could kill you, she said, but I won't. Because that is not who my people are. She took him prisoner instead. The act was broadcast across the battlefield. Both sides saw the Valorian princess spare her enemy's life. Outside, the battle reached its peak. The Valorian fleet was losing. Too many ships damaged, too many dead, but they were still fighting. Then a massive hyperspace signature appeared. 50 Earth Defense Fleet ships jumped into the battle. Admiral Foster's face appeared on the command channel. This is Earth Defense Fleet. We stand with the Valorians. All Kraith ships stand down or be destroyed, but more ships appeared. Dozens of species who had been watching the battle. The Valorians' desperate stand had inspired them. If these peaceful people could find the courage to fight, maybe they could too. The Kraith fleet was suddenly outnumbered. Admiral Krex, seeing his advantage disappear, ordered a retreat. Half his fleet was destroyed or captured in the withdrawal. The Valorians had won. The celebration in the refugee fleet was tempered by grief. Over 5,000 Valorians had died. Entire families lost, ships destroyed, but 2 million had survived. And for the first time in 20 years, they had stood and fought. Liara stood in the medical bay being treated for her injuries. Helen said she had pushed her body past its limits. She would need months of rest to fully recover. Jake found her there. You did it. You saved them. We saved them, she corrected. All of us together. A month later, a new galactic council formed to oppose the Kraith Empire. Humanity joined officially. King Tharrison and Liara represented the Valorians. Liara established a military academy for Valorians who wanted to become warriors. The Storm Guard became the core of a new Valorian defense force. Thousands volunteered, inspired by her example, but Liara herself needed rest. Her body was breaking down from years of stress and combat. She returned to Montana with Jake and Helen. The mountains were peaceful, quiet, safe. King Tharrison visited her there. He wanted to see the world that had saved his daughter. Jake showed him the cabin, the forest, the mountains where Liara had trained. "I understand now," Tharrison said. "This place made her strong, not just physically, but in spirit." "She made herself strong," Jake replied. "We just gave her the tools." 5 years passed. The war with the Kraith continued, but the Alliance was winning. Liara, fully healed, commanded the Alliance's special forces. She was famous across the galaxy. The princess who refused to die. The warrior who showed that anyone could be strong if they chose to be. She stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars. Her communicator chimed. It was Jake calling from Earth like he did every week. "How are you doing, kid?" She smiled. It was a human expression she had learned from him. "I'm good." "Really good. Your father called me yesterday. He wanted to thank me again for saving you." "You did more than save me. You taught me that strength is not about where you come from. It's about who you choose to become." They talked for a while longer, then said goodbye. Liara closed the channel and looked at her reflection in the viewport. She saw a Valorian face with human eyes, a princess who had become a warrior, a bridge between two worlds. She was no longer the dying child who came to Earth 25 years ago. She was no longer just Valorian or just human. She was something new, something the galaxy needed. She was proof that anyone could change, that the weak could become strong, that hope could survive even in the darkest times, and that was the greatest victory of all.